Social media be a very useful platform, but there are a lot of stuff that happen that people need to be aware of. Let's take a look at this, and I'll come back and then let's see the lessons that we can learn out of all of this stuff. Let's take a look at this.
Two Nigerian men are headed to prison for running an international sextortion ring. They preyed on more than 100 people. ABC's Andrew Dimbert shows us how their scam led a Michigan teenager to take his own life.
This morning, a pair of Nigerian scammers are behind bars here in the U.S., convicted in an internet con that turned deadly.
They solicited and received a compromising image, and then they immediately turned to blackmail their victims, hounding them for money, and even urging their victims to kill themselves if they couldn't pay.
Samuel and Samson Ogashi were found guilty of conspiracy to sexually exploit a minor after they extorted Michigan teenager Jordan DeMay. The 17-year-old homecoming king later took his own life, thrusting so-called sextortion into the national spotlight.
It started out with the supposed girl saying, "Hey, we have some friends in common."
The two men targeted DeMay by pretending to be a high school girl named Danny, eventually convincing DeMay to send explicit photos of himself. The scammers then demanded $1,000, threatening if he didn't pay, they would send those compromising photos to his friends and family. DeMay died by suicide just hours later.
When I think about the things that they said to him, it hurts me so bad as a mom to think about what he went through in the last hours.
But now some closure for DeMay's family. The Ogashi brothers yesterday were sentenced to 17 years in prison, the first conviction in an alleged sextortion ring involving more than 100 victims.
This is a serious threat that is only getting worse, and it can happen fast. We know that the time from initial contact to Jordan's passing was a mere 2 hours.
If you or anyone you know needs emotional support, you can always call 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
All right, so sextortion is a disturbing and a very harmful crime that preys on vulnerability and trust. Right, so some stuff that I think we all need to understand. So, the word might sound kind of not one of those common terms that it involves threatening. So usually sextortion involves threatening to share explicit or intimate images such as nude photos or videos, unless the victim complies with the demands of these blackmails. Now, these demands could be things ranging from providing other sexual imagery, paying of money, or gift cards. So, it's a form of an emotional manipulation and exploitation that can have devastating consequences for the victim. So, like the story of the young man who unfortunately lost his life. So this is on the rise. We gotta be aware, especially young ones, parents, guardians gotta be aware. And then there are some red flags. There are some red flags that can be a form of an alert to get everyone be on the lookout. So a few of them, you can have stuff like false reportage. So like predators may develop a false sense of trust with the victims. So in this case, those two brothers pretended to be people who kind of knew this young girl who took his own life. It's a red flag. Trying to pretending to know you. Number two, secret recordings. And the normal circumstance is a crime to videotape somebody, called somebody without his or her permission. That is a serious crime. So when you suspect anything of the sort, whatever is ongoing, the other party is recording you secretly. That is a red flag. Third one, these predators put up multiple identities in order to get in contact with the victims. Number four, pretending to be the younger member of the opposite sex. Hacking accounts. So they kind of store sexual images by hacking into the account of victims. So these are all red flags that people need to be aware of. Emotional manipulation. In the case of this young man, he was threatened that if he did not meet the demands of these predators, they were gonna leak those images online. Last but not the least, they visit public social media profiles to gather personal information that can harm the victim's reputation. So these are people that be all out there trying to research, get certain personal information about their victims, and that's what they use, trying to convince them to buy into their play. You gotta be aware. And talk about sextortion. There are two main kinds or types. Traditional one, which involve the predators threatening to share existing sexual images unless the victim provides more. Secondly, financial sextortion. Instead of demanding more sexual imagery, the predators seek more money or gift cards in exchange for keeping existing images private. So of course, how do we help ourselves? How do we prevent this? There are various resources out there that can be very useful. Of course, educational programs. Schools and educators can address sextortion through age-appropriate lessons. Very, very critical, because that is very fundamental, especially the basic schools, middle schools. And these programs will seek to teach children and teens about online safety, boundaries, and recognizing red flags. No, we can do nothing about it better, because our kids are always out there on the internet, knowledge of what they are even looking at online. But I believe that proper education is very helpful. So parental guidance is also key. Parents should engage in open conversations with their children about online risks, consent, and privacy. That rapport between parents and kids, very, very important. Law enforcement collaboration. So agencies like the Homeland Security work with parents such as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to combat sextortion. So law enforcement think it's time to up their game. Very, very critical. Self-care and support. Of course, the victims, the people who have been victimized by some of these predators, need a lot of counseling sessions, emotional support. Very, very critical. And these are some of the things that can heal and restore them. So I believe these are things out there, very dangerous stuff. Like I said, onset, social media, the internet is a blessing but a curse at the same time. So we just have to be aware of what we're looking at, the people we are getting into contact with online. And I believe that our world ought to be safe and a safer ground for everybody, especially the very innocent people. All right. So take care of yourself and be safe out there.